Recording.
Hola, hola, hola. Es Babushka de nuevo. Hello. We're in Mission San Luis here in Tallahassee, and I have the pleasure, honor, and I'm so happy to introduce you to my friend, the executive director, the brains, the everything of TWAM, Mr. Benjamin Gunter. See why I love this man? My love. I'm on.
Babushka. Muy deliciosa.
Siéntate. Bowl. Now, Ben, seriously. Pretend Babushka doesn't know anything.
Oh boy,
Okay.
that's going to take a stretch.
You're so funny. Bo paso. What is TWAM? Why is TWAM? What are your plans?
All right, TWAM, it stands for Theater with a Mission, TWAM. Right? It's an organization of volunteers ranging in age from 7 to people in their 70s, ranging in background from independent entrepreneurs. We have the sellers of an international beauty product, to people who work for the state, to people who are retired. Florida's full of them. And ranging in their connection with theater from people who've had lots and lots of theater experience to brand newcomers to the art form. So it's volunteers who are really, really interested in finding out how live theater can help people discover the life in history. So it's live theater accessing living history. We started forming in 2010. Before we even realized that there was such a thing as Viva Florida 500 and that there was going to be a big quincentennial in 2013. And our first affiliation with Mission San Luis, they asked us to bring to life different sites at the mission. For example, the fort, which was built in 1703, was burned down by the people who built it in 1704 because Mission San Luis was under attack by British and Cherokee forces coming from the north. So there you got it, folks. The history of American Latinidad, already under attack by the Anglos. And people were wondering, how could somebody do that? If you've labored for 50 years to get a fort, how could you burn it down? We found this wonderful scene from a play by Cervantes, called La Numancia, or La Cerca de Numancia, the Siege of Numancia. It's the story of the last people in Iberia who have not submitted to Roman rule. And the Roman army comes in and attacks, and the whole city decides, rather than fall into the hands of the Romans, they're going to burn up everything of value in the city. Everybody will throw themselves into the fire. And when the Romans enter, there's one person left alive. One small boy named Bariatus at the top of a tower. It's a tremendously dramatic scene. The Romans are at the bottom saying, "Come on down, we'll give you whatever you want, just as long as there's one person left so we can have a triumph in Rome." And Bariatus says, "I'll show you how a real independent, red-blooded American, Numantine, comes down and he jumps from the tower." It's an absolutely magnificent scene. So Mission San Luis said, "Come in, help us bring sights to life for people. Help us to bring seasons to life for people." So we found plays like Juan de la Encina's Second Carnival Eclogue, Carnal Fuera. These days we think of Carnestolendas as Mardi Gras. That's a really, really watered down version of what Antruejo or Carnestolendas meant in the Spanish colonial era. Our Latin roots have a whole bunch to teach us about how rich society can be. So we found this play by Juan de la Encina. It's got a magnificent battle between Lady Lent and Lord Carnival that's narrated by two peasants, by two sheep herders who are feasting. And it's a feast for the mind because they love bringing these words out about what Lady Lent does next, and how she whaps Lord Carnival upside the head with a big old raw sardine, and how he fights back with some chicken legs. It's really, really great. It's the best food fight you can ever imagine. So we started working on sites, seasons, and some of the celebrities of Mission San Luis. For example, one of the celebrated figures historically from Mission San Luis is Juana Catalina De Florencia, right. The wife of the commander of the fort. And she's very famous, maybe some would say infamous, for slapping an Appalachian chieftain in the face because he did not deliver her the 6 fish that she required to observe her fast on Friday.
You don't fool with the Spaniards' food. Don't do that.
Never.
No, no.
Never.
Okay.
But we were interested in bringing that to life because in history tends to get written down on a page and that flattens it out. You lose the complexity of the personalities. You just get the raw facts. And theater can step back into that situation and bring the people to life in 3 dimensions. We found a wonderful scene from a play by Lope de Vega called El Perro del Hortelano, which has been translated as the dog in the manger, because El Perro del Hortelano, he can't eat what the hortelano grows, but he doesn't let anybody else eat it either. Well, this is the play about Diana, a countess, who falls in love with Teodoro, her secretary. But she's a countess, and he's just a secretary. So she's got all kinds of conflict about this. And in a fabulous scene, she slaps him in the face and makes his nose bleed. And then she leaves, and he has a beautiful soliloquy, a sonnet, where he talks about, could this be love? Love hurts. A sentiment that is really, really good for people to hear, and that Latino heritage has a lot to tell us about. Then she comes back on and says, okay, Teodoro, go to my secretary and get him to give you oodles of money. And he says, why? She says, I want that handkerchief. You go buy some more. She buys his bloody handkerchief. It's just wonderful, good old kinky love. Nobody can do it like the Latins, right?
There you go.
So we started out bringing celebrities, seasons, and sites to life for people who are visiting Mission San Luis. More recently, having found out about the quincentennial, we've discovered a wonderful play by Lope de Vega, the very first play in history to put America on stage, to bring Latinos to America, to La Florida. And it's called El Nuevo Mundo Descubierto por Cristóbal Colón, or when it's home in English, Christopher Columbus bumps into a new world. And it's got tailor-made features for Floridians or people who are interested in rediscovering the Latin roots of La Florida. Because even though Florida has been affiliated with Spain for a longer period of time than it's been affiliated with the United States of America, most people in America still don't think of Florida as a Latin place. Not primarily Latin, not historically Latin, not originally Latin, not Latin to its root. You might go to Miami, and you might go to Ybor City, and you might go to St. Augustine, you might see just a little, no, but Florida is Latin to its root. So this play is wonderful for that because it's got major characters who are named for characters who come from Florida history, like Dulcanqueyin, the cacique of the natives that Columbus and his men meet in this tribe. It's got native Florida symbols, major Florida symbols introduced. Oranges come to the New World in this play. And what could be more Floridian these days than an orange? The natives worship the sun, just like Floridians today do. And it's got themes in the play that are really essential to the way we think about Florida's history and the way we imagine Florida's future. Themes that Latin people have been thinking about since they first landed here. For example, how can people from vastly different backgrounds share a place in the sun? And that's a question that as soon as Ponce de Leon landed, and as soon as he ran into Native Americans, that question started haunting us. And it's a question that goes into the government of major cities in Florida today. How can you take people from Yankees from the north? How can you take immigrants from all over the place? Because Florida's a place, nobody's born here. How can you take them and build a society together? How can you have religions that exist side by side, and maybe with dynamic sharing between them, without one wiping out the other? How can you build respect for people who speak different languages, who have different cultural imaginaries, and how can you build a society that includes them all and that profits from them all?
Now you see why he's my hero? And he's up on a pedestal for me?
Now you see why she's my babushka?
So, we will now see We raked his brain, we racked it, we picked it,
Oh,
we got it
oh,
all over place. Now we're going to actually see him perform for us, and you're in for an unbelievable treat. Get ready.